one thing that I'm super excited to talk with you about, Tish, is the feeling wheel. So sounds a little bit funny, almost sounds kind of, I think, game show when I think like the feeling wheel. I just think of a game show, but I would love it if you, Tish, could just kind of explain what this is, this idea of a feeling wheel, and kind of the thought behind it.
Yes, the feeling wheel. If you're curious, just pull up Pinterest right now and type it in, and a whole bunch of examples will pop up on your screen. The feeling wheel is meant to be a visual aid of helping conceptualize emotion. And so feeling wheels start with like a center, and then they have concentric circles that go out, and in the center are what are considered core emotions, and then the outer circles are more nuanced, more kind of examples of that core emotion, right? So like if you think of, I'm trying to think of a good one, like jealousy is often like it's fear is at the core.
Ooh, I'm thinking like Inside Out. Did you ever watch that movie? Because that's exactly what I'm thinking right now.
Inside Out was actually a children's cartoon about emotional intelligence.
Oh, totally. I cry every time that I watch it because it always is just like, oh my gosh, this is so deep for a 4-year-old, but wow.
Very, very deep. The writers did an excellent job. There's actually counselor trainings on how to use Inside Out as a tool in working with children in therapy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not even kidding you.
That's my kind of therapy. I'm an adult and I'm down for that. I mean,
we're like, we'll sign up, please. We want that.
Okay, that's awesome. So there's core emotions, just like, the I guess there were 5 of them, I think, in the movie.
Yes. So in the movie, they represented with 5. In research, there's been a lot of research on what are the core emotions, and it's a little nuanced, but the 7 core emotions are fear, anger, sadness, disgust, joy, excitement, and sexual excitement. And so these are emotions that can be layered with other emotions, right? Like anger can really be a defensive emotion above a more vulnerable emotion like sadness or fear. But those are the core emotions that when you get down into core emotion, they aren't layered over anything else, but at the core of our being, that is just the honest experience that we're having of an event, of a situation. That's just our spontaneous, authentic experience. That emotions are just telling us the story about what we're experiencing. So they aren't good, they aren't bad, they just are. And they're really important information to listen to so that we can choose how we respond. And so the feeling wheel is really just a tool that gives a visual of a little bit. I tell my clients it's a little bit like if you're not sure what you're feeling, right? Because this is not a skill that we're born with, to know what we're feeling. And so to just take a list of emotions, take the feeling wheel, and just like kind of try them on. Like, okay, I know that I'm like activated. I know that I'm feeling something, but I don't know what. And so to kind of go and just like, okay, is it this? It's this. Okay, I think it's this. And it's really bringing, like, we experience our emotions in our body first. And a lot of times we're disconnected in our culture. We're totally disconnected from our bodies. But bringing our awareness of our experience and our emotional experience is very calming to our brain. Our brain really likes it. And so sometimes the best way to tame our emotional experience is to name it. So name it to tame it.
That's really, really good advice. So how do you do that though in the moment? If in the moment I'm feeling really intense frustration because at my core I'm angry, and how do you kind of like take a step back and pull yourself back in that moment to name it.
It's very hard. So it's like a muscle, and it's something that you practice and you get better at over time. And so I think the first step is retrospectively being like, what was that about? What was going on with me, right? This happens in my marriage, right?
Oh, totally. I was literally just thinking the amount of times that I have gotten upset with my husband over something super small and then come back later and been like, you know what? That wasn't the real reason I was upset.
Totally. Right, totally. And couples always say it's like our fights are always about the silliest thing. But when you get down to it, for whatever reason, this situation that is not a big deal in the scheme of life, it is pushing some really deep, important buttons, right? It's like you might feel invalidated or not listened to. And when this is your person, this is someone that matters to you more than, anyone else, that has the potential to create some of the most powerful emotional responses inside of your body that you've ever had in your life.
Over something so silly, like usually. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, he didn't vacuum. Like,
Yes, but always underneath that is a deeper fear of some kind, some type of fear or feeling of vulnerability, some threat of disconnection. And so being able to identify what am I feeling in the moment it's like a muscle that you build. And so kind of you begin by, like what you're saying, it's like you've reflected of thinking, okay, what was that about for me? What was that? What was really going on in my heart? And then you are able to identify that. And then you go back to your husband, and then you're able to explain that, share that with him vulnerably then, what you weren't able to share in the moment because you were too in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first kind of, reps that you're taking in building your muscle. And then the second step is noticing just when you're activated, just noticing when you're escalated, and being able to make that explicit in your mind, knowing, okay, my body is really upset. I say my body because you're literally having a physical response. And
right. Like you tense up or something like that.
yes. And I'll just very briefly go into what's happening in your body. So if you think about, like, this is your spinal cord, this is your brain stem, this is your limbic brain or midbrain. It houses your emotions and your attachment system, your bonding system, and your like fight or flight. And then you have the frontal cortex that's over top, and it organizes and integrates all of them working together. So
Amazing. I'm already like, oh, wow. So good.
This is the hand model, and it is not, Dan Siegel is the one who teaches it like this. And so whenever this part, your attachment system and your emotions get activated, think about like it getting agitated, and it's like fingers on the side of the cliff. It starts to be able not to be able to hold on. And then if this gets agitated enough, you flip your lid and parts of your brain literally stop behaving, right? Which is why you're like, why would I say something so irrational or so illogical, or like, how could I, like, why did I act that way? Right? And it's literally because your lid is flipped, if you will, and you are just in reaction mode, fight or flight or freeze. And it's a very powerful response your body's having, because our brain does not discriminate between imminent physical danger and relational, emotional danger. And so when you're talking about someone that means more to you than anyone else in the world, or even a close friend or family member, and it feels like there's a threat of disconnection, we could have the exact same body response, as if maybe even more severe than if we ran into, maybe not more severe, I don't know, like a bear on a hike or a mountain lion. It's like this very visceral response. And the literally your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part of your brain, is no longer online.
Wow.
Yeah, so even being able to pick up the feeling wheel when you're in that moment can, even focusing on something and kind of distracting yourself and pulling yourself from that emotional state could be helpful. But truly, the best thing is to just notice, okay, my body is in this state.
Mm,
No good communication is going to happen when my body is in this state.
right.
And or maybe you're by yourself and this is just something that's happening within you. And for you to know, okay, you need to give yourself a chance to calm down before you problem solve. Like a big part of the way you feel is because your body's so escalated.
Yeah, no, that's good. So the feeling wheel is, like you said, to name it and tame it.
Yes, exactly. So because you asked kind of how do we in the moment use the feeling wheel. And so being able to first retrospectively, second, being able to notice in the moment when you're escalated, and then being able to do things that will calm you down. Like literally, I will stop speaking to my husband and like if I'm starting to get agitated and I'll just like start deep breathing. I'll be like, I just need 1 minute because I know my body is starting to escalate and I don't want that to happen because then it's going to be a lot harder to regulate myself. So then it takes about 20 minutes if you're really agitated to calm back down.
Mm,
And then for those stress chemicals to kind of reach baseline again inside your body, then it's a great time to bust out the feeling wheel and say, okay, what just happened? And let it be an aid in giving you language, right? Multiple choice
mm,
rather than fill in the blank. So think of the feeling wheel as multiple choice for your experience, because you being able to name it, oh, I had this reaction to my husband because his comment, I was feeling this
mm.
insecurity. I was feeling this powerful fear. It's like, oh, that makes so much sense. And I don't feel crazy.
Right. And then I think it's giving you the chance to kind of get to know yourself better. When you recognize that him saying this triggered this that maybe happened years and years and years ago, I think it gives you such an amazing chance to reflect and get to know yourself better so that you can kind of like hold yourself together in the future when you feel it coming on. Oh, this is because of this.
Yes. And being able to get your needs met,
Mm,
right? Because your emotion is saying something really important. So if something happens with our husbands and an insecurity that is more of historical origin or whatever gets triggered in us and we have this reactivity, that brings more isolation
mm,
versus being able to, just like you're saying, like we're all in this process of growing in our awareness of ourselves. But kind of God's design for that is that we would invite God into that space and we would invite our important others into that space so that we could be cared for, right? So that your husband could know enough about your heart that he could speak the reassurance that you need, right? And then it's like experiencing acceptance and empathy in that place of vulnerability brings healing, and it brings like a deep sense of connectedness with the other that actually helps us get our need met, that helps us even that insecurity begin to heal. And so emotions are so important. Emotions are the currency of connection and relationships. We can't even connect with each other without sharing our emotional experience with each other. And
mm.
so
Yeah, that's good. And I love thinking of the feeling wheel as, being an aid to both yourself and to others, and to letting others in and letting others, know what you're struggling with and what you're feeling. And yeah, that's so good.
yes, good. So go and download a feeling wheel, put it on I'm not even joking with you. When I first found the feeling wheel, I literally like took a screenshot and kept it on my phone. And so they have all kinds of colorful ones on Pinterest. Lots of free downloads online. So, but it's great for kids too, helping give them language for how they feel in their experience. So
Awesome. So good. So good. Not a game show, but just as rewarding, you know?